In this video, we're going to create a ability for us to go through the game based off of what maps we want to happen in progression. So what we're going to end up doing is we're going to create a class that's going to hold all of our maps that we're going to have in this game. So we're going to hard code it into a script file. This script file is going to then be read whenever we want to progress through the next level. So when the player gets to a portal, and then after completing level 1, for instance, then it's going to move on to level 2, or so on and so forth. Now, the reason for this is because we aren't going to just use level 1, level 2 for map names. We're probably going to use some neat names here and there. Maybe that deal with the scenario as much as just what level the character's on. So we don't want to. We need to make sure that we can kind of tell the game, okay, after you finish this level, move on to the next level. Okay, so what we get to get started, we're going to also create kind of like another option as well, which is to give the level designer the ability to kind of go off the normal route of setting up these levels. Like, for instance, it might not go from level 1 to level 2, level 3. It might go from level 1 to level 2 and then off to the side to another level, and then come back to level 3 or go off to another level, and so on and so forth. This kind of gives the level designers the ability to not just follow the program 100% if they don't want to. So inside of puzvolume underscore portal, we're going to create a variable called portal info, and that's going to be a string, and we're going to call that advancing map name. Down in the default properties, we're going to set advancing map name to equal none. This property can be set inside the editor now because we allow it to by putting the parentheses, and it'll be under the category portal info in the properties area of the volume. So when the person puts this portal into the map, they can then go ahead and put in a map name if they want to. If they do, then it's going to, when we get finished with the coding here, it's going to load that map instead of the normal map that would be the next one in the progression. If they don't, then it will skip it and move on to going through the map list that we're creating. So the next thing we need to do is we need to go and create a class called puzGameMapInfo, and it extends from info. And this class has a struct called MapListInfo. And a struct, when you create a structure, you put it into its own bracers, and then you put a semicolon there to basically say that you're done creating the struct. Now, structs in UDK do not have functions, so they only have variables. So basically, it's kind of like a way of kind of categorizing your variables under one thing. Inside the struct, we have map level number, map name, map bonus time, which we're not really going to use right now, and connecting map number. Later, we might add more. If you want to add more, you can. There might be other reasons or other things that you want to add that read from this list so that you can kind of keep information based off of each thing. For instance, if you think in dungeon, you might say, well, I want to make the bonus time 10 minutes. You can do that. You can maybe add like a bonus point thing for completing the dungeon. Also, maybe even set the point value of each objective that's collected. You could do that as well if you wanted to, and then just read that instead of reading how we originally set the objective value. Okay, so after you create a structure, that doesn't do you any good at this point. It just basically you define what it is. So you kind of define what map list info is. You kind of created your own variable, so to speak, but this variable holds other variables. Then what we're going to do is we're going to create an array of the structure. Now, if you wanted to just create one map, you would just do one map list info. But we're going to have multiple maps, so we need an array of maps. And an array of map list infos, basically, in order for us to have information about each map. We're going to call this array map info. And then in default properties, we set the map info for each one in the array, starting at 0, because arrays always start at 0, and working our way up. So we do map level num equals 1, and then so on and so forth. And then the connecting map number is basically what the next map should be. So after you complete level 1, you move on to map level num 2. Now notice we have a map name here. That's very important to get exactly correct as to what the map name actually is called. If you typo or do something wrong, then this won't work. It won't load the map. We have map name equals dungeon. We threw a new map in there to get started. That's going to take the place of test level 1 because test level 1 didn't have a portal. And later we're going to be obviously removing these other ones and putting in kind of 4 levels of our own. Now that we have our map info class going, we go inside a puz game, and inside a puz game we set a variable class puz game map info, and we call it puz map info. And down at the bottom in default properties, we set puz map info equals class puzzle game.puz game map info. Now, why do you do this? Well, the reason why you do this is because one, it's nice, you need to set the variable so it's just not something empty, but also because by doing this we can change this later. So if you had a different game version, that might mean you have different maps for that game version. And if that's the case, you just reset this map info and then it'll still work with the code. So it kind of gives a little bit of a dynamic touch there, because now you can just change this one class to basically reset how the maps flow. So now that we have that set, we can go down into our level completed state. And inside level completed, down inside begin state, we're going to, at the bottom, set timer 3 false. Now, we didn't call the timer or anything. Like normally there's a third parameter in here. And that third parameter is usually the name of the timer. If you don't name the timer, it's called timer. So we do set timer 3 false, so it won't loop and it runs after 3 seconds. Now, we won't be keeping this. We're actually going to be changing this very soon. But for right now, it'll work just to kind of show you how this code works. And then up at the top here, we're going to do function timer, which is inside of the state. And we have a numerous local variables here. We have local integer I, which is just the counter for our for loop that we're going to be using down here. We have a local integer next map number, which is basically the next level. We have a string called current map, a string called next map, and we have a local puz volume portal, which is called puz portal, that's going to be used for our iterator. We set current map to what worldinfo.getMap is, and then we set next map to equal none. Now we use our iterator. Now we're going to do a for each puz player.pawn.touching actors. We want to know what the pawn's touching actors are, and what we're looking for out of these touching actors is we're looking for a puz portal. So we're going to look through all the things that this pawn's touching, and we're going to try to find a puz portal out of it. Which obviously the player should be in a portal if he's finishing the level. Now, we set the timer to 3 seconds, which means the player could probably run in the portal and run out. And if that's the case, he won't be touching the portal, but we're actually going to be changing that code to making so the player doesn't move anymore once he finishes the level, because we don't want him running out of the portal. We're going to do, after we do the for each iterator, we're going to say if the puz portal.advancing map name is not equal to none, so that means if it was set, or it's not equal to empty, basically, which is quote and then quote again. Now that would happen if the map level designer was going to change the name, he deleted out none, and then forgot to reset it. We do this kind of as a fail-safe more than anything. Now that doesn't stop the level designer, from putting in like a letter A or B or something like that, and then or a level that doesn't exist. But it does help in case if he just forgets that, he forgets to put a map in there. And then what we do is if it is not equal to none or it's not equal to empty, then we're going to say next map is equal to puz portal.advancing map name. So it's equal to the name of the map he's saying to go to. Then we make sure that next map is equal to none still. If it's not equal to none, which means that what the player was set in the portal that was meant to advance him away from the normal map list, then like I said, then in that case, then we will skip this. But if it wasn't set, then it will be none most likely, and because we won't be resetting next map like we did here. So we go down, like I said, if next map is equal to none, which it should be if there was no portal that has an advancing map name, and we're going to do a for loop, which is going to go through the array of our map info that we create, of our structures inside of our puz map info class. So we're going to do for I equals 0, so we're going to start off at the array 0, and we're going to say while I is less than puz map info.default.mapinfo.length, so the length of the map info array that's located in default of puz map info. And then we're going to run through it, and then every time it finishes running through it, we're going to add 1 to I. So then we're going to check to find the current map name. So if the current map is equal to the map name, then we're going to set the next map number, the next level, which is that connecting number, to that next map number, local variable we created. And then that's going to allow us then to do another loop where we're going to search for that number and find what the next map's name is. And that's how we set it inside of here. If the next map number equals the map level number, then we know that's the next map on the list, and we go ahead and we set that. Finally, we do a last check. It says if the next map is not equal to none. So if it has made it through all of this and it has set something to next map, then we do a console command that says open and then the next map. This dollar sign basically is a connector of strings. So it's saying open, then we put a space, and then we use this dollar sign to change this variable to a string and add it to this. So basically we'll be doing a console command of open whatever the next map is. And then otherwise, if it's still equal to none, then we set an error that there's no map to load. That way the player or the person making the game can say, oh, okay, there's a mistake somewhere. And that pretty much finishes this video. So whether you set the next advancing map in the portals or if you create your own map list at this point, it should load properly and without any issues, as long as you get the map names correct based off of what they actually are. And and that pretty much does it.